There are many exciting things happening on XRP Ledger, and today I want to share with you the latest and greatest on lending. So, the lending protocol brings on-chain lending to XRP Ledger, allowing borrowers and lenders to agree on loan terms off-chain and capture these on-chain. The protocol introduces strong fundamental primitives to enable various lending protocols in the future. Oh, sorry. And with modular and reusable principles in mind, the lending protocol not only allows for lending, but also enables various different protocols that rely on cumulative liquidity. So, the specification is made out of three parts. XLS64, which introduces a pseudo account for tracking balances of multiple ledger objects. XLS65, which introduces the managed single asset tokenized pool for collective asset aggregation. And last but definitely not least, XLS66, which introduces XRP Ledger native lending protocol. So with the introduction out of the way, let's have a look at what do these specifications do and what are they bringing. Starting off with XLS64. So the problem is fairly straightforward. XRP Ledger is an account-based blockchain, meaning that all assets, XRP, IOU, tokens, they have to be held by an account. And to track assets on behalf of another object is a little bit tricky. This problem was partially addressed on the automated market maker, which introduced a concept of, let's say, a synthetic account, allowing to associate let's say, a fake account with an automated market maker. What we're doing with XLS64 is expanding upon this idea and allowing associating a pseudo account with one or more ledger objects to track various balances on behalf of those ledger objects. And on chain, it looks roughly like this. So we're introducing a new field called ledger entries into the account root object. And all of this does, it holds object identities for which this particular account is responsible for tracking token balances. And then equally on the accounts, on the objects themselves, there is a reference to the pseudo account, which is tracking the balances of those objects. So building upon this, we have XLS65, the single asset tokenized pool. Now, it is incredibly tricky to speak about DeFi without mentioning Ethereum. Over the last, 5-6 years, we have seen an explosion of DeFi protocols on Ethereum, starting from decentralized exchanges, yield farms, borrowing and lending, and others. And one thing all of these have in common is aggregated communal liquidity. It is no mystery, it's fairly common knowledge that to drive adoption, standards are necessary, they're required. And Ethereum is no exception. The community got together and they proposed a ERC 426 for 626 tokenized pool standard, which defines a communication interface with tokenized vaults. And this really took off. Over 100 DeFi protocols rely on this, starting from lending protocols such as Maple Finance, TrueFi, MakerDAO, various AMMs. All of them support ERC 4262 standard. And although XRP Ledger does not support EVM-based smart contracts, adopting a well-known standard that is used by the crypto community will reduce the boundaries for integrating various frontends into the XRP Ledger. And so this is exactly what XLS 64 is. It is a standard for tokenized vaults. It introduces a generic vault object into the XRP Ledger that can then be tapped into by other protocols, such as lending, yield farms, or anything else the community might come up with to provide communal liquidity. The specification introduces abstract transactions for liquidity management, read-only APIs for estimating returns, previewing what the mutable transactions might do, and other mathematical calculations. The unique aspect about this specification is that on their own, the transactions do not have much logic. The execution logic is left for the protocols that rely on the pools. In essence, one way to look at it, it is one transaction to rule them all. And so let's use withdraw transaction as an example. All withdraw transaction does is you give it LP tokens and you tell it, okay, I want to withdraw such and such amount of liquidity from the pool. What happens internally is that in the withdraw transaction, we're specifying the pool, the lending pool identity, and it defers to that specific lending pool to figure out what is the execution logic. In the future, if somebody comes up with a yield farm protocol, they will be able to reuse exactly the same transaction with exactly the same fields, making it easier to integrate with existing front ends that are out there. Okay, with vaults out of the way, let's have a look how the lending protocol works and what does it bring. So like Jazzy mentioned, the XRP Ledger native lending protocol is bringing fixed term interest accruing loans. They are uncollateralized and thus they rely on off-chain underwriting and risk management. However, to protect the investors, to give them some kind of a insurance policy, the protocol also introduces on-chain first loss capital protection scheme. Who are the players? At the very core, we have the pool delegate. A pool delegate is controlled by one or more on-chain accounts. And first and foremost, they are responsible for creating, updating, and deleting the lending pool. Once the lending pool is on-chain, then the pool delegate can start attracting the liquidity providers. They may attract the liquidity providers through very favorable interest rates or very favorable capital protection scheme. It is up to the pool delegate how to do this. The protocol is not prescriptive. Once the liquidity providers are attracted, their responsibility is to deposit liquidity into the pool. With the liquidity on the pool, the borrowers then can come and ask for a loan. Here the pool delegate is also involved. The pool delegate is responsible for underwriting the loan, in other words, figuring out the terms of the loan with the borrower, managing the loan once it's created, and defaulting a loan in case the borrower is unable to pay the loan. Of course, all protocols in DeFi require incentives, and the lending protocol is no exception. Starting from the borrower, the incentive to the borrower is that they get access to on-chain liquidity. For the liquidity providers, the incentive is that every single payment made by the borrower is composed of a principal amount that was borrowed plus interest. And this interest goes back to the liquidity providers, and each liquidity provider receives a share based on the initial amount that they deposited, that they contributed to the loan. The pool delegate, for all of their hard work and the risk they are taking, receives various fees from the borrower. So this starts from fees such as credit origination fee for creating the loan, service fees, payment fees, late fees, and all sorts of other not hidden fees. So how does one go about actually creating the loan? So the process is fairly straightforward. Off the chain, the borrower and the pool delegate agree on the loan terms, perform creditworthiness checks, due diligence, and anything else that the pool delegate deems necessary to determine that this borrower is legitimate. They are not a big risk. Of course, again, the lending protocol is not prescriptive. The pool delegate might choose not to do anything. However, with the loan terms agreed, they are captured in an on-chain object called a loan. But this does not capture the legal agreement. This simply captures things such as the interest rate, the payment period, the late fees, and other necessary information to compute the loan. Once a loan is created, the borrower and the pool delegate together sign a transaction called loan create and send this to XRP Ledger. It is very important that this transaction is signed by both parties. If the transaction would be only signed, for example, just by the borrower, well, this would enable the borrower creating the loan without the agreement from the pool delegate. Of course, vice versa also holds. So if the pool delegate could create the loan object without the borrower's agreement, well, now the borrower is suddenly in debt without his consent. So that's why it's very important that this is a multi-signature transaction. Once the terms are saved on chain, then the borrower can start drawing down from the funds and paying back the loan. So what is the life cycle of the loan? Well, at the very beginning, we have the start. So this is day 0 of the loan. If everything goes well, the borrower can start making regular payments that are calculated, where the payment schedule is calculated using traditional amortization function that comes from the lending world outside. Or they can make a single one-off payment paying off the entire loan with some early payment fees. Now, the less happy path is when the borrower begins missing the payment. So far, everything is okay. The borrower can make a late payment, which contains everything that was due up to the missed payment point, plus any additional accrued interest, and as always, late payment fees. Once this payment is made, the loan goes back to its original state and business continues as usual. Unfortunately, if the borrower continues missing the payment, after a certain grace period passes, the pool delegate is now in the position to default the loan. Once the loan is defaulted, it is done. The borrower is no longer able to make any payments against the loan, and this triggers the first loss capital liquidation scheme. How does that look like? So in the nomenclature of the lending pool, this is called a pool delegate cover. It is a first loss capital to safeguard the liquidity providers. And it is a configurable percentage of the value of the pool, of the lending pool. So for example, if the pool delegate creates a lending pool with a 50,000 USDC cap, and they configure that their pool delegate is 50%, it means that the pool delegate has to deposit 25,000 into the pool as insurance. Once a loan is defaulted, a configurable percentage of that deposited capital is then liquidated and returned to the liquidity providers to cover the losses. Again, the lending protocol is not prescriptive. It is up to the pool delegate to decide how much first loss capital they are willing to deposit and how much of their first loss capital they are willing to use to protect the liquidity providers. So for example, if the pool delegate chooses to provide 0 first loss capital, it means that the liquidity providers are bearing all of the risk for the borrower. On the other extreme, if the pool delegate decides to protect the entirety of the liquidity pool, then the pool delegate is taking upon all of the risk on themselves, but this might mean that the interest rates are higher or the fees are higher, so it would be more difficult to attract the borrowers. So it's a very delicate balancing game between making the pool attractive for the liquidity providers and making the pool attractive for the borrowers. So this is what I have so far about the lending protocol. It is a very high overview, but this is just the beginning. So we have released the specification for a discussion with the community, and we're actively taking in feedback and suggestions. By the end of Q3 of this year, we want to open the specification as a pull request on GitHub to officially start the process of getting the specification into the RippleD codebase. By the end of the year, we want to have we aim to have the lending protocol available on the DevNet so that developers can start playing around, so we can collect feedback and make necessary improvements. And at the first half of next year, the lending protocol should come to a mainnet near you. However, this is just phase 1. In phase 2, we will bring the other more complex, feature-rich aspects of lending, such as different kind of loans, for example, credit lines, or collateralization mechanisms, and others. Community feedback is incredibly important to success of any protocol. And so I really highly encourage you to scan the QR code, go on GitHub, have a look at the specification, and leave constructive criticism, feedback, ideas. We're very excited to read that. So this is everything I have for you for today. Thank you very much for your time, and I would really like to welcome your questions. Thank you.
Hey, Vito. Great presentation. My question is, what is, from your point of view, the reason for not having on-chain liquidation mechanism?
So, great question. Thank you, Vet. The reason why you need an on-chain liquidation mechanism is to guarantee that the liquidity providers have some kind of a protection mechanism. Otherwise, the risk might be unbearable, and the liquidity providers might not be willing to deposit funds to lend. So it is a kind of think of it as a sort of pseudo-incentive for the liquidity providers to give liquidity to the lending pool. Thank you. Yes, please.
If the borrower is defaulted and is unable to pay the loan, what happens to the borrower? How does it impact him? Will he face any prosecution, penalties? Because it looks like I can take a loan, not pay it back, and I'll be fine.
Right. Very good point. Thank you. So, a couple of things will happen. Internally, any funds that have not been drawn down will be removed from the loan and put back into the pool. The other point is because the protocol heavily relies on off-chain underwriting and off-chain processes, there is a kind of a, let's say, an assumption made that there are other legal agreements between the pool delegate and the borrower off-chain, so that then the pool delegate can begin off-chain processes to reclaim those funds. So it follows rather similar mechanisms as traditional lending. Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, how do you handle multiple underwriters?
What do you mean by multiple underwriters? Sorry.
Often in lending, there are multiple underwriters on a single loan. So how would you handle that scenario?
That's a great question. I have not considered that, because at the moment the pool delegate, the pool assumes there's a single pool delegate, so there's a single underwriter. But if the off-chain mechanism involves multiple underwriters, well, that is the prerogative of the front-end provider.
Could the delegate can the delegate be a multi-sign account? And
yes.
So then I guess underwriters could be inside of that multi-sig.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which legal entity would actually be allowed to be a pool delegate in, for example, the US or the European Union?
I cannot make any comments about the legal aspects. It is not my expertise. But anybody who wishes to be a pool delegate, they can be a pool delegate. And then it is up for the liquidity providers to trust that pool delegate, and up for the borrower to trust that pool delegate. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hello. So I have a question about the vaults. As I understand, they're intended for other protocols to use them as well.
Correct.
So my question is, can a vault be a trust line as well? Meaning that can it be so that if a user deposits some capital to the vault, that vault issues a token to them once they deposit their capital?
That is exactly how vaults work. So when I deposit assets, so think one way to put a mental model of vault, it's like a investment fund. You put your liquidity into the vault, you get LP tokens out, and there is the expectation that whoever is responsible for managing the loan, managing the vault, they might use some funds for lending pools, they might use some funds for yield farms, they might use some funds for DEXs. All of these returns funneling back into the vault, increasing the value of those LP tokens. And the LP tokens are native tokens to the XRP ledger, so they can also be used as.
Yeah, I meant more like incentive tokens besides the LP tokens. So let's say we issue the LP tokens, and then I want the vault to, on the execution layer, to have issuing some tokens over time to anybody who has deposited into this vault. Would something like that be possible?
We have not considered that. I'm just trying to quickly see how would that technically work out. That is an excellent idea. I need to think about this. This is a really good idea. Thank you.
The loans can be traded as far as I know, because the loans are LP tokens and they can be traded essentially. If a lender wants to get out of a loan, basically they can sell it for cheap for someone else to take their position, and these people can wait for the payment.
Technically, you are not trading technically, you're not trading the loan. You're trading the LP tokens that are in essence showing, okay, I have this and this, these and these many funds in the loan, in the vault. So from that perspective, if it's only a lending protocol, in a sense, yes. But if it's a multi-instrument vault, then you're in essence saying, okay, these LP tokens that I'm selling to you may or may not increase in price in the future. Do what you wish with that. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Please, I would like to ask, does your model have a way of making sure that a borrower is already on a loan, so that to avoid having multiple loans at the same time, one borrower?
So a single lending protocol, a single lending pool assumes that there's only one account that can, only one account can have a loan in the same pool. But if the borrower takes a loan on multiple lending pools, again, it is up for the pool delegate to figure this information out and then determine should they lend funds to them or should they not lend funds to them.
Okay.
Thank you. Last question, I believe.
It's very quick. I don't know, maybe I missed it. Are you considering flash loans?
Flash loans are really complex in a sense that they bring a different risk profile that has to be considered for the DEXs, but I don't want to go into more details, so maybe yes, maybe no, we will see.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with that, thank you very much for your time.